she's working on her memoir, and Patrice loves to hear from her readers. And so if you want to go to her website, there's so much on there. It's fabulous. Go to www.patricecarts.com. And let's welcome up Patrice. So happy. You know, it's amazing. When you shift in energy and you ask for things to show up, they just show up, don't they?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And we're going to talk about her journey because she sent me some questions and I had some questions on interviewing you. But I do like your very first one you said to me. You have a very unusual path to publishing. Can you tell us the story of writing God Made Easy?
Well, first of all, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. And thank you so much for having me. It was great when I walked in here.
I know, right?
I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. All right, great. What date? Okay, that date sounds good. And hi, everyone, and thank you so much for coming today. So, yeah, the story of God Made Easy is a story. And so what happened was I've been a lifelong spiritual seeker ever since I was a little girl. Living in England, I looked up at the stars at night and would cry because I felt like they were home, and I was here in this very dense planet, and I, came from a lot of, had a very sad childhood, a lot of childhood abuse. I had mentally ill parents. They had been, survivors of the war, and anyway, it was a lot. It was a lot, and so I think I used to look up at those stars, and that's when I first sort of developed my relationship with God, because I knew there was something magnificent that had created those stars and all the other signs of beauty that I saw on this earth, babies and cuddly animals and all the things, and yet I couldn't understand why there was so much suffering. So I started a lifelong spiritual journey, and I bring that up because it'll come into play in a minute. The other thing was I had always felt all my life that there was something I was supposed to do. I know probably most of us have this feeling, there's something we're meant to do, there's something, but for me it was this insatiable, like, there's something I'm supposed to do here, but I didn't know what it was. It was like complete amnesia. Okay, so fast forward, I'm living in Pacific Palisades. I'm, I don't know, maybe 32 years old, 33, I had a young child. I was a single mom working a full-time job, and it was a Saturday morning, and I woke up out of a dream, a nondescript dream, nothing particularly interesting about the dream, but when I woke up, I saw these words that were hovering in front of my eyes, maybe, I don't know, a foot, 2 feet, just hovering, and they spelled out in big, bold letters, God Made Easy. And I had absolutely no idea why I was saying these words, but it got me thinking, how could someone do that? Like, how would you make God easy? Where would you start, And then this little inner voice said, go get a notebook and start writing. And it was honestly the last thing I felt like doing. My son was going to be still asleep for probably another hour or so. I was exhausted. It was Saturday. I didn't have to get up to go to work. And I didn't want to do it. And so I laid my head back down, and the best way that I could describe what happened next was just this energetic, like, whoop, and I was up, and the voice said, go get the notebook. So I got it. I grabbed a spiral notebook, and I started writing. And it poured out of me in it was 1 hour exactly, because when I wrote the last word, I looked at my clock on my bedside table. It was 7 o'clock in the morning. And I had no idea what this was. It was about 20 pages of, scribble. Didn't dot I's or cross T's. There was no thinking involved. It was truly a download. And I've never had a download like that, let's put it that way. And that was it was November 11th, for those of you that are into 11/11, it was November 11th, 11/11/1995. So now it's 7 in the morning, kid's still asleep, and I'm like, what is this? And the voice said, this is to be a book. It will go all over the world, and it will reintroduce the wonder of God to people of all faiths, or to people who have no faith at all.
Right.
And your job, Patrice, is to get it published. Yeah, so now I've been given a mission, And I have no idea how to go about it. I had no idea what the proper protocols are for how you get a book published. And that's a good thing that I had no idea, because ignorance was bliss. I had no idea. I just said, okay, well, I'm going to do this. God just gave me a mission. So next day, Saturday, went to Kinko's, got it all. I didn't have a computer. This is 1995, so, you know, like the internet, Amazon, computer, it was early days. So got it all printed up, went to Barnes & Noble. There were Barnes & Nobles. Went to the Barnes & Noble in Santa Monica. And I looked for spiritual books. I knew it would be a small book, obviously, 20 pages written in an hour. And I wrote down the name of 3 publishers, and on Monday morning I proceeded to call all 3. And got past that morning the gatekeepers, past the receptionist, secretary, I don't know, somehow got my way through to the acquiring editors, which is unheard of, by the way. Because now that I'm many books into this, 30-year publishing journey, you don't do that. You can't just call up publisher, goes, hey, have I got a book for you? You have to get agents and write query letters, and it's a whole rigmarole. But that morning, I didn't know, I called them up and I said, my name's Patrice Karst, and I've written a mass market book about God for the entire planet, and I'd like to give you the first opportunity to see if you'd like to publish it. And I think the sheer audacity of doing that got their interest, and they said, what's the title? And I said, God Made Easy, and they all 3 said send it. 3 weeks later I was signing my very first publishing deal with a small publisher.
Yeah, that's great.
But wait, it gets better. So I sent the book, the galley of the book, before the book is printed into a hard copy, you've got a galley, the publisher gives you a galley, it's like the printed Xerox, if you will, sheets, so you could send out the galley to famous other authors in your genre. In my case, it was New Age spiritual, right?
Right.
And see if they'll blurb it, if they'll write a comment that might go on the front or back covers. So I sent it to a lot of famous authors, got back a lot of great endorsements. One of the people I sent it to was Maryum Williamson. And I got a phone call from my day job. I was working at a day job, and I got a phone call. Is this Patrice Karst, with this very thick New York accent? Is this Patrice Karst? And I said, yes. He goes, this is Al Lohman calling from New York City. I'm Maryum's literary agent. Your manuscript jumped into my hands, and I'm going to make you rich and famous. Yeah. And I was like, what? And I thought it was like a friend's husband goofing on me, or giving me a prank. So I was like, oh, Al, I'd like to be rich and famous. I'll let you, And anyway, he was legit, and through another whole set of incredible miracles, he sold the book to Time Warner. And so in 1997, the first version of God Made Easy came out. It was my very first book. I was thrilled. I could exhale now, because I had, God wanted me to do something. This was the mission, wrote the book, it's out, and now I don't have to worry about it. But the letters started to come in. I got letters from, it was published, by the way, in Dutch, French, Spanish. Ellen Burstyn did the audio version of it, and people resonated. People resonated with this little book. And long story short, because I know I'm not making a long story short, but I'm trying, 4 years later, that publishing division of that publisher dissolved, and I got the rights back to my book, and I proceeded to spend the next 25 years trying to get a new publishing deal, because now it was out of print, right? And, and I had allowed that to happen. I could have just kept it in print, but, I thought, I'll get a better book deal for God Made Easy and give it a new life, and then it never happened, because publishers don't like to republish books that have already been out. Right. So, anyway, by that time I had written The Invisible String for my son, which we're probably going to get into, but so we'll get into that story. But the voice kept nagging at me, you've got to get that book back out there. The world needs it now more than ever. Because I thought the world really needed God Made Easy 30 years ago. And I'm convinced the world needs to have things be made a little simpler right now, because we're living in a moment, right?
Yeah,
so,
we're definitely living in a moment.
So God Made Easy just got released with a brand new publisher, and I could not be more thrilled. And it just came out 3 weeks ago, and this is the new God Made Easy for a planet that really needs it. So.
Yeah, really needs it. And as I was reading it, I just want to read a couple of pages from it, okay? It says, remember, we're all in this together. More will be revealed. and never, ever forget you are loved. I just, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, people just need to pick this up, put it next to their bedside, and just read a page or two. Because it's a spiritual practice to remember that. First of all, we're all in this together. Second of all, you are loved. Because what one letter said, one of the children on your website, and because Patrice has gone to schools and organizations for children.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And one of them was, I really love Patrice's book because she explained how the invisible string is love.
Yeah, no, kids really get it.
Kids get it.
They
do get it.
You know, they can understand very complex subjects, but the simpler you can make it for
Yes.
them, then they can take it and run with it. And I want to say one thing, because it's going to show you how neurotic I am. People think, because it is a little book and it does have beautiful things on each page, that
Yes.
you can just pick up a page and like an oracle deck, right, and get your message for the day, which is great. But really, 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 the way I want people to read the book for the first time, at least anyway, is from the front page to the end,
Yes.
just like a book, because
Yes.
that's how it came through. It has a continuity from the beginning to the end. But you can certainly pick a page, anytime
Well,
you want to do
yeah,
that.
and I'm assuming, thank you for saying that, because I did read it from page 1 through, because I'm like, oh, what else is she, oh, what else, what else?
Right.
But it's, for me, it's going, yeah, I could do that and reread it, but if I don't have a lot of time, I'm just gonna
Pick
pick
a
it up
page.
and go, what's my favorite page
Well,
of this book?
people love to do it that way.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed. People go, oh, I just love to open it to any page. And I'm like, okay, who knew? I didn't write it that way, but hey,
Yeah.
however it's meant to
Yeah,
be.
Exactly, it's fabulous. Well, the other thing, you had, you sold 2.5 million copies of your children's book, The Invisible String, which I did read also. And how did that book come about?
Yeah, well, that's another miracle. Really, those are my two big miracle books. I mean, I've written a lot of books now, but the two that just have the most unusual story behind them are these two. The Invisible String happened because I was working full-time, and my son had horrible separation anxiety. When I would bring him to school in the morning and say goodbye, he would start sobbing, and then I would drive to work sobbing, and we were both a mess. And nothing I said or did changed anything. He was really suffering. One morning, I said to him as I was getting ready to leave, I just said what was obvious to me, which was that we were connected all day long by an invisible string, and that if he missed me, all he had to do was tug on the string, and I would feel it, and I would tug it back, and he would feel it, and we'd be together all day long, even though we're not in the same building. And something just lit up inside of him when he heard it. He goes, the invisible string? And we have a string, Mama? And by the end of the day, by the way, he didn't cry that day, I said, just keep tugging on the string, because I'm going to be feeling it. And by the end of the day, all his friends were coming up to me and saying, Miss Karst, is there really an invisible string? Does it go here? Does it go to my uncle? Does it go to my hamster that died? Does it go to my grandma? And the answer, of course, was yes. There too, and absolutely there too. And so I knew I had to write it as a children's book, because I figured if children could be this mesmerized by the idea that they are connected by invisible strings to everyone that they love, you've got something that could really help a lot of kids. So I wrote it as a kid's book, went to a small publisher that I knew, and he loved it, and he published it. And it did really, really, really well. I was thrilled. I thought my world, book-wise, was going to be self-help spiritual, because at that point I'd also written a book for single mothers called The Single Mother Survival Guide, and I was on this circuit speaking with, a lot of the New Age speakers at that time. But, then things changed, and suddenly the invisible string was taking off. It was being used by the military and the prison system and hospitals, hospices, and divorce attorneys and therapists and social workers and educators, and everybody was using the invisible string. And, yeah, I mean, who knew? I said to my son and I, we talk sometimes and I go, can you even believe this? Can you even believe that our love, and let me just share one thing, because I always forget to share this story, and it's really so special, and that is that one night, a few years ago, I was having a rough time. I was just really sad. I suffer depression, and, a lot of us that are deep sensitives, we have, we feel all the things, and then we feel them some more, and then some more, and then some more. And I was just having a really sad night, and I cooked him dinner, and I saw him grab a copy of The Invisible String and was writing in it. He said, after I leave, I want you to read this. And so I grabbed the book after he left, and he wrote in the book, he said, Mama, you wrote this book for me so many years ago to show me how much you love me. And I just want you to know that a string has two ends, and I will always be at the other end of yours.
Oh.
And I was just like,
oh, I love it.
That kid must have a great mother.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was really sweet, and it was like full circle, and I think what's happening now, the book has been out, Invisible String has been out now for 26 years. It came out in 2000.
Incredible, wow.
And now it's got a whole second and third generations
Yes.
that are having their own children and reading the book to them. So it's become a classic.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, love is what you beautiful musicians and all the songs you're singing, and you said it yourself just a few minutes ago.
Yes.
You said something about that love is the most powerful.
Yes.
And that is my whole jam, is that there is nothing that is stronger on this planet than love. Not nothing.
Exactly.
No
Nothing.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had an interesting journey personally.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's why she wrote the memoir. Yeah.
I know, right? Oh, yeah. And, we always think, we have a thing in Science of Mind, and people will say, oh, just put on a happy face, and I'm like, no. Okay, so I'm through a process right now. I'm learning that and being present to my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're present to our emotions, and you've had a lot of ups and downs in your life, but always at the end of it, I always look and say, where's the gold? What am I learning here? How is it strengthening me? And through a lot of your adversity, how has it strengthened you?
Oh, it's everything. Adversity is what shapes us and turns, spins straw into gold. It's true alchemy. And nobody that I know or that I've ever heard about has ever come to God because things were going well in their lives. Nobody was ever like, I'm great. I'd like to get to know God a little better now. People come to God, people come to their own deepest truths when they hit their own dark bottoms, their own dark nights of the soul.
That's true.
And, and look at it, all the great, all the other great artists and every creative thing. I guarantee you, somewhere in there's probably been someone that was suffering and turned it into gold. So I think that, like I shared recently, I was at the Center for Spiritual Healing in Ventura, and Reverend Bonnie was, asking me a similar type question, and I said, and I'm so glad that you talked about that, because in the Center for Spiritual Living, in the Ernest Holmes, the whole New Thought,
yes,
which I studied, but I've studied. My book was literally my house was a Bodhi tree. I had every spiritual book you could imagine, and I've been studying all of them since I was studying Yogananda when I was 12. So, but the golden truths that are woven through all of these teachings are the ones that I pay attention to, and hard stuff. That's where faith happens.
yes.
And faith is that golden substance that can't be bought or taught. It's just something that develops when there's nothing else left but to believe in a power greater than yourself. Right?
I agree, because when we don't have those moments, when we don't have that, the hard times, we're not growing. I remember when I was at Agape, and Reverend Michael used to say, if you're not feeling like there's a struggle, you're not growing.
Right. Right, and there's a lot in the spiritual
Yeah.
world,
Yeah,
you know, in the New Age, New Thought spiritual
Right.
world, there is a lot of, you know, what we kind of call spiritual bypassing. Now.
yes.
And gaslighting and toxic
Mhm.
positivity. You know, how are you? Good, great, you?
Yeah.
And I can never relate to those people because I'm just like,
No.
they're too shiny for me. Like, you know, they're never better. You know, I was
Yeah.
telling Bonnie to the never better people, how are you never better? I was like, really? Never better? Never? No, I got nothing to say to you. Have a good day. Glad you're never better.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm glad you're never
But
better.
there's something that really, you know, I don't know, not to walk around being morose all the time, because I can do that too. I can be really, yeah, that's not, you know, balance is good, for sure. Especially when you write spiritual books, you're not supposed to be like that. But I do believe in keeping it real, and I know for myself for sure, when people are real with me, and I really I get to know exactly like who they are for real.
Right,
That's
right.
when I feel a closeness to them. That's when I, you know.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because as we transcend or move through some of the difficult parts in our lives, there's a part of us that, you know, the what do you call it? The part of the fog is lifted from us, and then you and I, Patrice, are able to connect on a deeper level.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's true intimacy. And God likes true intimacy. God doesn't like posers. I don't think. No, I'm speaking for God, what God likes and doesn't. But my sense is that God likes it when we keep it real.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
He created us to be uniquely different than one another. He doesn't want a bunch of smiling bobbleheads, you know? He wants people that are genuinely having their experience on the planet that He placed us on.
Well, absolutely, and that's the path. You know, it's like you said, you've read everything from Self-Realization Fellowship, and I've got all the books and all of the teaching, you know, the home course that they send
Here
you.
now, Ram
Yeah,
Dass,
oh my gosh,
yeah.
all of it. But the thing the thread that falls through any of them is that they have gone through a lot to get to the place where they were. They have moved through a lot in order to awaken. And we had one person here that he was a Jagadish, you know, Parman's a Jagadish. And he said, I'm awakened, but I have millions of other levels to get to.
There's no end, right?
There's no end, yeah.
There's no end.
No.
And
Absolutely
if you,
not.
by the way, and if you actually study the lives of the great saints,
Mhm.
Ramakrishna, Vivekananda,
Yes.
let alone Mother Teresa, the great saints all suffered a
Oh, yes.
lot
Yes.
in their
Oh, yes.
longing for the divine, because once you've tasted the divine,
Mhm.
you know, once you've, you know, I've had both a curse and a blessing in that I've always remembered the other world that I came from.
Yes.
When I say remembered, I couldn't tell you exactly what it looked like or what language we spoke, but I distinctly remember, which has made it so hard for me here, a place where you could just think where you want to be and you're there, and
Oh,
there's,
yes.
you know, just not the cumbersomeness of a body, and you know, just the heaviness, the denseness. But that's, you know, and it's nice. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to remember where you came from and to know where you're going. So there's no fear of death for me. But it makes staying here,
Right.
you know, it's not
It
for
could
the
be,
weak.
it could be challenging sometimes.
It's not just a tad once in a while.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
once in a while. Well, I was thinking about this, you know, because I did watch your talk with Reverend Bonnie. There have been a lot of people on your path, and I thought, I wonder who has inspired you or assisted you or helped you to keep on trucking, girl, okay?
You know, friends for sure,
Okay.
friends that you know, my son obviously, but really I have a very deep connection still with the little girl that lives inside of me,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
holding
beautiful.
her hand through this lifetime,
Yes,
you know, and then God.
yes, yes.
See, for me, God, people ask me, well, what's your concept of God? And by the way, obviously, in case I didn't state this, God Made Easy is not a religious book. It's the antithesis of organized religion. Not that I have anything against any one religion. They're all beautiful, and I love going to Catholic churches and regular churches and temples and mosques and shrines. Anywhere where where people are worshiping God is a holy, you know, sacred place to be, and I love it. But my experience of God is sometimes as a father, a heavenly father or a divine mother. So sometimes it's a parental, loving caretaker, best friend. Sometimes God is much more impersonal, much more the vastness of the entire galaxy. And the light shining through every molecule and every DNA strand and every cell in our beings. And so it goes back and forth for me between this very personal God and a very galactic God, and that's how I like it,
Oh, yeah.
Because God doesn't need to be put into any one little
Absolutely.
box, for sure.
Well, the other question was, it says, and I like this, and you talked about a touch, but it says, what do you think about the times we're living in, and why do you think? Because we do need to be lifted up right now. And why do you think God Made Easy is the perfect book for those of us that are overwhelmed, overstimulated? Because I heard somebody say, a lot of people don't have memory problems. We're so overstimulated from everything coming at us that we just need to sit back and be for a moment. Because we have information, I don't know the statistics, but it's like crazy every day.
Information
Crazy,
overload.
crazy.
Yeah,
right?
no, we're living in a moment right now. We're living in a moment in time unlike any other. And all these decades now I've been on the planet, I've been saying, oh, this is it, and this is it. And now, like, oh my God, what was I even thinking? Like, the information overload, the warp speed with which we hear and see everything.
Everything.
Our attention span. I used to read big books. My bedside table, I would dig deep into a book and I'd be reading for 3-4 hours. I will admit to you, I am scrolling my phone now. I have the addiction. I'm scrolling, every dog video, little cute dog videos, and then a singer living in a cave in Kenya. I mean, I'm like, you're just like, the whole world is in your hand.
Yes.
Everything so fast.
Yes.
So I think now it all makes sense why it took 25 years to get God Made Easy a publishing deal again. Because now is the time, right? For those of us with limited attention spans, God Made Easy. It's a good.
Well, because it is easy. I'm sitting there and I read through it in, I don't know, I'm a fast reader, but I'm reading through it maybe in 10 minutes but it's so profound. You can start reading it and okay, I got to stop for a moment. Let me contemplate that. Okay, now I'm going to keep going. Oh, acts of kindness, love, support. We are humans. When we humans are at our best and our hearts are all warm and fuzzy inside.
You know who's at work again.
Yeah.
Right.
You know who's at work again. Isn't that amazing?
See, I couldn't have sat down. If I had, let's say I had gotten an idea, I'm going to write a book called God Made Easy. First of all, I never would have had the presumption to think that I could sit down and write a book about God. In fact, you referred to Reverend Michael Beckwith from Agape.
Yes.
After I had written God Made Easy and it got published, I brought it to him. And I said, Reverend Michael, I don't know what to do. I'm getting asked to speak about God now. People are inviting me to go to churches and spiritual centers and, New Age expos and talk about God. And who am I to talk about God? And he gave me that very deep Michael Beckwith, where he looks into your soul and you're like, ooh. And he's looking at me, he goes, Patrice Karst, who are you not to talk about God? And I was like, all right.
Exactly. Because if this channel do you, what amazes me is people will look up to somebody else. We have our own guru within us.
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
And who are you not?
That's right. Who are you not?
It's beautiful. Because when Patrice talks or I talk or one of you talk, there's a wisdom coming from you that we can access. And it's gorgeous. And I love that. I love that. There was one other question I had. What time is it? Oh, we're getting there. Why do you think that God chose to wake you up that morning? In other words, why you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm really glad that he gave me God Made Easy, a nice, easy, quick book than, something that would have taken me years and years to write. He knew that I was chomping at the bit for a job, I was like, what am I supposed to, you told me I know I'm supposed to do something, so he probably just said, okay, you for this particular message. I mean, there's so many messengers of God's, right? Like,
Yes.
you know, you're a messenger of God, and you're a messenger of
Yes,
God. And
we all
some of
are.
us write, and some of us speak, and some of us paint, and some of us do energy healing, and
That's
some
right.
of us, and we're
That's
all,
right.
you know, using our instrument, our body in this lifetime, to do greater works.
Yes.
I don't know why he picked me, why he woke me up for that particular, on that particular morning, but I'm just really glad that I didn't go back to sleep. Because I really wanted to, right? I really did. And that's very metaphoric, because sometimes we do want to go back to sleep.
Yes,
Because
yes.
we're tired. We're just tired from being humans. And sometimes it's best not to go back to sleep, because you never know what might happen if you stay awake for the moment. So I'm glad he did. I feel so honored. I feel so blessed. And luckily, because I didn't write a pious, righteous book, I don't have anything I need to stay living up to. I mean, I write in God Made Easy.
Yeah.
God doesn't even mind if you get pissed off at him. He doesn't have
love that.
ego.
Right.
You know,
That's
if
right.
you're pissed, if you're upset, if you feel betrayed, because I have felt all of those at times with God, and
Yes.
I've been like, what is wrong with you?
Yes.
You know, like, well, why are you, and, you know, he can handle it. He can handle it. What he wants, he doesn't care, by the way, and obviously the reason I wrote the book, God doesn't care what name we call him, her, it. God does care that we call.
Yes.
So that's really, I think, why the book happened, because in these letters, because the letters I got, you know, it's one thing to, you know, you feel like God woke you up, you wrote this book, you got a book deal, all these things are happening, but until you start getting a reaction from the public, from your readers, you really don't know, right? And when those letters started to pour in, and people were saying, this little tiny book came into my life at just the right time and changed my life.
Yes.
And I had a lot of atheists writing to me, and agnostics, saying, you somehow have helped me understand what a higher power even means. And sponsors in the 12-step programs were giving it to their sponsees.
That's great.
And,
That's great.
you know, so, yeah, I did my, you know, like I said, I can't take credit for the writing of it, because that really did feel like a dictation of sorts, even though it was my voice, it was my personality and my belief system. Nothing in it, when I read it back, nothing went, ooh, I don't know about it. It was all like, yeah, that's it, that's it, that's it.
Yeah.
But I do take credit, and I will, you know, because it's important to own, you know, we're so, at least I'll speak for myself, I'm so good at beating myself up, not always so good at saying, good for you, girl. So I'm going to do a public good for you, girl, right now.
Yeah,
I
good for you,
understood
girl.
the assignment. He said, go get it published. And
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, granted, his grace helped those doors open, because if he didn't want it to get published, you know, it wouldn't be published. But when you have a mission, when you have a calling, when you have an inner nudging, when you have those things that come into your life that just, you know, they're different. They're different than all the other ideas and things. There's something, it's a burning inside of you. And for me, had I have not, if I were still here 25 years trying to get this book published again, I don't know, I was wanting to give up, because I was like, nobody wants this book.
Right.
And then finally, when the